1 Million Cups is a weekly educational program developed by the Kauffman Foundation.
It's a place where our entrepreneurs can come and connect within the community.
There's a real kind of vibe or a real energy here that's about supporting entrepreneurs.
We have 2 presenters each week.
2 entrepreneurs, they come and tell about their journey.
They each have about 6 minutes to present.
You're telling people what you're up to, and you're essentially getting feedback from them.
There's about 15 to 20 minutes of Q&A.
All the questions that they asked us really got us thinking about new ways to think about our business.
It was good to just be able to get that feedback from the rest of the community.
So over the years, we've added more cities. It creates a great energy here to see what's happening across the country.
Last question for you, what can we as a community do for you?
The what can we as a community do to help you question is what really coalesces the community around every single presenter.
When somebody applies to present to 1 Million Cups, they're instructed to watch a series of videos through the Kauffman Founder School website.
It's invaluable information for someone who's founding a startup.
I felt better prepared, I felt more confident, and I think a little more focused than I would have been otherwise. Had I not watched the videos at the Founder School, so it was a great way to prepare.
I really like the educational component of 1 Million Cups because it does create that open forum.
You're going to hear great ideas that will help you start thinking even more about what you want to do with your business.
What I've learned from other entrepreneurs is very, very valuable.
The cool thing about 1 Million Cups is that you're amongst other people like yourself.
Just hearing someone talk about their startup, it just was magical to think, wow, there's other people out there like myself.
Sitting in a room with other people that have ideas too, it helps people to leave thinking, you know what, my idea is worth something. It's worth pursuing. It's worth going after it. Even if it looks like a challenge, I should still go out and try to do it.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to 1 Million Cups Waco. So glad you're able to join us today. Looking forward to a great presentation today. We've got some friends in the house that we really love to support and just super proud of what they do in the community. Big part of it. So before we get into that, got a couple of things I'd love to run through. One thing is we have a great opportunity right here at 1 Million Cups Waco. I like to say it this way. It's your turn to invest into the next generation of entrepreneurs and business owners, startups, etc. here in the local community. We've been asked to partner to help the Dr. Pepper Museum to gather entrepreneurs to share their stories to students within the Waco School District. As the school year begins, they're finding ways to support teachers in our area virtually. So one way the Dr. Pepper Museum has decided to do that is by facilitating a free project in which students can interview professionals in the community, which is local entrepreneurs, which is super cool. They will provide teachers with the materials they need to help students develop questions for professionals about what they've learned from their failures. To make that possible, they've reached out to us to connect with organizations, companies, entrepreneurs that value learning from one's mistakes and helping others grow. So this will be at the elementary level, and the interviews will be about an hour on Zoom. This will be in October, so next month. We're just in the process of gathering as many people in our community to rally and support our teachers with endless stories to own their stories for the local community. So if you're interested in this, you know someone that would be great candidate for this, please share this stream with them, share the video with them, comment, just reach out to them, send them our way, let them know what we're doing. We'd love to get more info and get our entrepreneurial pool full so that we can help these teachers really impact these kiddos with what it looks like to own their own business or to be involved in an entrepreneurial story and have their own. So it's super cool. And if you're an entrepreneur, you know you have your story and it's a journey. There's good and there's not so good. So we love to share both sides of that coin because there's value in that. There's value in vulnerability and just being transparent with your journey and how you learn from that. So, and then also, if you haven't already, follow us on Facebook and Instagram. I almost said Twitter. Man, we have a Twitter, so if you want to follow us, but we don't really use it very much. So Instagram and Facebook, We do updates there on Facebook. You'll see our events each week. And we also do Meme Monday. I will say it every week because it's kind of fun. You get to kind of just be a little fun and icebreaker for the week. Check us out on Instagram as well. Without further ado, we're going to go ahead and introduce our presenter this morning. A good friend of ours, and we really love what they get to do here locally in Waco. It's Miss Jaja with Waco Cha, and they will be presenting. So, Miss Jaja, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to you and let you have the floor. We're excited to have you here.
It sounds good. It's an honor to be back. Let me go ahead and share my screen here, and I'll just put up the slides. Alrighty. Like Matthew said, my name is Jaja Chen, and I am one of the co-owners and chief of staff of Waco Cha. And we are a boba tea company here in town. If you've never heard of boba before, we sometimes describe it as a gummy bear-like texture when it comes to the boba balls, which are little tapioca balls that are an add-on to teas and originally coming from Taiwan. So it was about 2 years ago whenever we, meaning my husband, Devin, and I first launched Waco Cha at the farmer's market. And at that point, I've had been a social worker here in Waco for quite a few years, and Devin had been an engineer high school teacher in Waco ISD for about 3 years at that point. And for us, being involved in the community as helping professionals really meant investing in young people, mentorship, and whatnot. And both of us had a heart to continue not only pouring back in the next generation, but also really creating more diverse and inclusive spaces. Devin is a Chinese immigrant, and I myself am a second generation Taiwanese immigrant, and I had lived both in Taiwan and in China throughout middle school and high school. And so as Devin had taught for quite a few years up to that point, he had met quite a few high school students locally here in Waco who had identified that they loved seeing the growth in Waco, were excited for what's to come in downtown especially, but then many of them identified feeling that a lot of the growth in Waco was not really including their diverse heritage or their background. And so in particular, that really led Devin to think about, what are ways that we can start to create more diverse spaces here in Waco. And so for me as a social worker, at that point, I was thinking more about nonprofits or ways to be able to engage folks in those realms. But both of us have had a passion for tea for years. Food is so essential to our culture. And that's something that we had always done more so as a hobby, inviting friends and family members and folks to enjoy tea and to enjoy food around community. But eventually we started to dream and wonder, is there a way we can actually start up a business that centers around diversity and community and just so happens to involve food? And that's where Waco Cha was born. So our values specifically are diversity, community, and courage. Like I said, we started up in the farmer's market. There's our original team. There was, just about 4 or 5 of us in a little pop-up canopy tent at the farmer's market back in 2018, just popping up on Saturdays once a week. And really at that point, we had already created different recipes for our tea and did trial runs with friends and whatnot. But at that point, we really, looking back, we did not even realize how much growth we would be making, compared to now versus when we first started up. And there's just a lot of, kind of things that we were trying to do that didn't work out and whatnot. I remember the first day at the farmer's market, we had originally marked our tea prices without the inclusion of tax on that first day we launched. And so I remember I was having to, a lot of people would use cash at the farmer's market. And so I was like, it'd be like total of $4.96. And I'd be like trying to count all the pennies of change. And then eventually we changed our menu to where we actually included text within our prices at the farmers market, so it's easier to provide that change and whatnot. There was a lot of ups and downs with the farmers market. We were there for exactly 1 year. So in every single season, the summertime, and then remember one spring, we actually had bees, a swarm of bees. It was probably about, I can't even remember exactly how many, but more than 100 bees like swarmed our honey syrup that we used within our drinks. And so that was most definitely eventful. And I was even recapping with a team member the other day. We remembered one fall, it was blue skies, just like this picture. And then within 5 minutes, wind started blowing in, and then there was a black cloud that overshadowed the entire downtown area. And then it just started pouring rain. So this happened within like less than 6 minutes time frame after we had set up at the farmers market. And I remember we were all holding on to the center of the tent, and the tent was still moving. And we were like, oh my goodness, is there going to be like a tornado, or is this like the 1954 tornado or something like that? But yeah, those were the early days of the pop-up tent, and quickly grew to where we then upgraded last summer, 2019, to a mobile tea truck. So this is right in front of Startup Waco, where 1 Million Cups usually meets at. And last summer we had our ribbon cutting in front of Startup to celebrate not only 1 year anniversary, but also the launch of our mobile tea truck. And so the mobile tea truck really gave us opportunities to expand beyond the farmers market, to be able to weather storms and to weather different outdoor elements a lot better, and to also be able to expand our team to the point where we eventually hired on a general manager and added on a lot more team members as we popped up around the community. About probably 6 months into our mobile tea truck, we quickly realized the mobile tea truck was going to be more of a temporary thing, especially as we started to see that the limitation solely was the space within the truck. When we finally landed on our current location, which is at 1001 Franklin Avenue, and we opened this past May 2020. So it was funny that the day we actually got approved by the health department here in Waco to open our kitchen and to utilize it was actually the day that the shelter in place occurred. So the timing of everything, we had no idea anything related to COVID or whatnot at that point. But it really intersected with when we had planned to open and launch our store. So like I said, shelter in place occurred, and so they closed all the dining rooms and restaurants, right? And so at that point, we put pause on opening. We had already planned, to have our grand opening in March, probably by the end of March, and we were going to do ribbon cutting, grand opening, and all the plans for a big launch and whatnot. But we put pause on all of those plans, and then we just continued operating out of our mobile tea truck. And we're just really thankful because we had already been in the truck for, about 1.5 years up to that point. Pivoting our business due to COVID really was just continuing to just do what we'd already done with the addition of, protective equipment and whatnot, because we'd already been operating to go only for up to that point historically, in our business. And so we like to say, we were already really scrappy and, already just kind of like in a startup kind of mode. So adding on COVID was more of like, okay, how do we adapt to this next challenge, right? And so we added on the online to-go ordering and just continued operating out of our truck up until May. And once restaurants started to reopen is whenever we finally launched our storefront downtown and started to operate to-go in our downtown storefront location, along with the truck itself at the market and other community events. In addition, during the pandemic, as many of you know, a lot of restaurants and cafes and beverage companies, we lost so much of our revenue due to community events being shut down or even just catering being stopped. And so what we did to mitigate that or to even make up for the loss is we started up a food concept. And I know that sounds kind of crazy. A lot of people are like, why would you start a food concept in the midst of the pandemic? But we really had been thinking about doing additional kind of food ideas that are from Taiwan for quite a few years. We started out by doing Waco Bao dumpling night workshops where we taught people in community settings how to make, fold, and cook dumplings on site. But then once the pandemic hit, we could no longer do dumpling night workshops. We couldn't do events anymore or any kind of gatherings of those sorts. And so we started to wonder, how can we still offer Waco Bao, but in a way that actually fits with COVID precautions, right? And so we actually launched Waco Bao dumpling boxes that are pictured here, along with Waco Bao lunch boxes this past summer as well. In the midst of the pandemic, we first started testing them out at the storefront, and then we eventually actually launched a little pop-up tent at the farmers market that's operating on Saturdays now every week, selling both the lunch boxes that are Taiwanese style food along with the pan-fried dumplings. And so throughout all of this time, everything that we've done has been with the desire to not only share our community and our culture with folks in Waco, but to also really root all that we do in diversity. We like to joke that we create community, TEA, and seek to increase diversity in our communities, not just within our team, but also when it comes to highlighting more diverse cultures, right, within our community, and to really highlight and celebrate the beauty of diverse cultures, such as various Asian cultures and also our Chinese and Taiwanese culture, and really being able to share that with the community. And so that's something that we continue to seek to implement within our team, in the ways that we raise up our teams and in the ways that we even help our team to better understand how to work with different cultures. And about 80% of our team is bilingual or trilingual, and so we really emphasize wanting to have team members who know how to engage with different cultures and to really engage, especially right with different with people who've just lived in different countries, or even folks who are immigrant backgrounds, or folks who maybe have traveled and just really want to continue to enjoy diverse foods. Those are all different aspects of what we think about when it comes to expansion, and even what we hope to do within Waco Cha. When we think about, events, community gatherings, or even new initiatives, it's always through that lens of our values, of our values of diversity, community, and courage, and really thinking about, what are ways that we can continue to look through that lens, and then to walk out in new things through that lens. It's funny because when we first started at the farmers market, I was actually really nervous to share boba tea with the community, because I knew that not as many people were familiar with the products. Boba tea is from Taiwan originally, but then it kind of felt like putting not just my culture out, but then also it's like, oh, this is like who I am, my culture. I'm like putting myself out on the table, even for people to critique or criticize. And it's funny because we actually did have folks, when we first started at the farmers market, make really kind of insensitive comments, right? Me and my team member, we actually remember this one time where this individual came up to us and saw our tea samples, and we were like, hey, would you like to try out our tea here? And they immediately yelled at us, saying that we're not Texan, and asked us why we were here. And they stormed away, like really angry and upset. And at that point, my colleague and I were like, did they just say what we thought they said? Like, did they really just tell us that we're not Texan, and why are we here? But at that point, we were just kind of like in shock of like, we can't believe they just made that kind of comment. But since then, I've shared that story and continued to encourage folks to really see that, even though we experienced that pretty early on, I saw it more as gives me even more reason for why we need Waco Cha within our community, right? To be able to increase folks' understanding of diverse cultures and to be able to see not just the value or beauty behind the cultures, but just to also see the value of cultures within Waco that folks might not have engaged with or even known about before. And so in the end, I tell folks now, yeah, we're not necessarily Texan, but that's okay. So here I am. If you have any questions, I can stop screen share so I can actually see everybody's faces. Alrighty.
Well, way to go, Jaja. That's a great presentation. Round of applause for you across the screen there. I'm even going to give you snaps because that's so cool to see how you guys have really, what I love about this is the branding in the sense of you guys, you can sense the heart you have for the community, even though, like that experience that you have with those guests, if you're not Texan, but your heart is here and you have a heart for the people of this community, which is so rich and valuable. And we just say, way to go, way to continue to pioneer and really stretch yourself to really challenge the status quo and say, no, like we love this community. We want to be a part of it. We want to show you what we have to offer to this community with your culture, which is awesome. It's a great way to experience different avenues of what there is to bring to Waco. Because Waco is a hub for many, many different types of people. And it's just a great way to see that diversity, like you said. So really appreciate what you do. We do have a couple questions. I'll let Chrissy go ahead and launch off for.
Richard Dunn asked, has your landlord worked with you on your storefront locations?
Yes. So we launched so in December was when we actually signed the lease, and then we started renovating right between January to March. So once COVID hit, our landlord, they're actually the owners of Alpha Omega and 1424, were to the left of Alpha Omega. They actually did work with us, and they were just so gracious. In fact, the landlords are also immigrants themselves, and so we've connected from the beginning. They're from Greece, right? And so we've connected with them from the beginning when it came to that, and they even shared, that during the COVID pandemic, their hope was more so to walk out in hospitality through just figuring out whether that be like payment plans or even just lowering rent temporarily. Initially, especially when shelter in place was going on and we had to put pause right on opening our shop. At that point, we were only using the kitchen. So they did work with us for a few months. And then once everything was allowed to be reopened, we went back to, kind of the set rate that we had agreed upon.
Jaja, that's really cool to hear how people really collaborate. I remember hearing this saying, and I think it may be Devin, you can just confirm or deny, I don't know. I think it came from Devin. It's community over competition. I think that came from him.
Yes.
Okay.
He usually uses that as a hashtag a lot in a lot of posts that we do.
I love that. And one reason why is because no matter like if you have the same type of business or if you're different, it doesn't matter. As long as we're focused on community and the diversity and what we do here, there's no such thing as competition. The only competition, really, there's not, that's just, I love the framework behind it. I know that you guys have had a journey, obviously from Devin going being a teacher. There's some entrepreneurial leaps you could say that you've had to take. I would love to hear kind of the significance of where those leaps came from and where you guys really had to step out and say, okay, we're taking a chance here, we're taking a risk, and how it was successful, but then also kind of the backside of, okay, here's the other side of the coin of like, this is a risky move, so it doesn't work. We're going to be in a little bit of a creek. But I'd love to hear just a little bit about that and the story behind it.
Oh, for sure. Well, for sure, the first leap was putting out the application to the farmers market. A lot of people don't know this, but we actually had applied back in 2017, and they waitlisted us for over a year before we were finally able to actually launch our pop-up tent. And so at that point, I personally was done. I was like, okay, that was a great idea, but I guess that's just not meant to be, kind of thing, you know. And Devin really spent that whole year continuing to hone in on the recipes. And I just remember he would always be serving me milk tea, and I'd be like, nope, not good enough, not authentic enough. And then he always jokes that it took him a year to finally convince me that it really was worth doing. And right when he finally perfected the recipe for the tea was when Bethel, who was the new manager at the farmers market, coming in at that point, messaged us and was like, hey, we saw your waitlisted application and we would love to have you all start a pop-up tent at the farmers market. And Devin told me that and I was like, what? You still want to actually do it? Like, I can't believe that that's still on your mind. And he was like, why else would I have been testing out the teas for this long of a time frame, you know? Yeah. So I personally, you know, if it had been up to me, maybe Waco Cha might not have existed, but Devin was very, very adamant that he was like, you know, this is something that Waco needs and is something that we want to be able to bring to the community, right? And for me, initially, it was more of a, I'm not so sure about this. Is this just a hobby, or is this really going to go somewhere? So I guess that's more of my lack of vision, you know, initially. I always say that my personality is more of like the anchor that kind of slows things down and is like kind of questioning, like, is this really the best way to do things and whatnot? And he's like, okay, gung ho, let's keep going forward. More the visionary, right? So that's definitely the first kind of step to actually just start up at the farmers market. The next step was when we realized, wow, we're growing so much at the farmers market. Folks keep wondering, where's our storefront? Yet, you know, we were just kind of limited at the farmers market on Saturdays. And rather than rushing into just going straight from farmers market to like a storefront, we were like, hey, we want to grow smoothly and steadily and in a sustainable kind of way. And that's part of why we did the mobile tea truck, right? So the mobile tea truck was an opportunity for us to be able to continue growing, but where we both in our careers could move more into like a part-time position. So both of us at that point were doing more like a part-time work while also doing Waco Cha on the side. And then this past summer was whenever, you know, when we started up the storefront, you know, I had a conversation with Devin. I was like, I don't think you can really go back to teach realistically with all the growth that we've had now. And, you know, he was kind of hesitant to really jump full time into entrepreneurship in the midst of COVID. But at that point, I just really encouraged him because I was like, you know, we've kind of made transitions like this. It's like he always jokes he went from his background's an engineer. He went from being an engineer, moved to Waco, worked as an engineer, high school teacher, and now he's self-employed. So he says like every 2 years, it's like it's like another half pay cut basically. But then increase of joy when it comes to the work that he's doing and the work that we do together even. So that was a huge jump for us, even just thinking about, oh, okay, we're making this jump of where now both of us are self-employed in the midst of the pandemic. And at first it was kind of like, we're crazy. This is not the right timing. Maybe he should still work part-time at least. But really, that actually wasn't even an option for him at that point. And so then we were like, okay, we'll just go full force into entrepreneurship on both ends. I don't really talk about this as much, but I'm a therapist on the side as well. So my full-time work, I guess you would say, is private practice therapy. And so that's something I've been doing for about 3 or 4 years.
That's awesome. Something that you said that really stuck out. I see you go for the question, Christy. You said it was a huge joy. That's so important to put a pin in, because a lot of entrepreneurs don't understand that when you start a business or if you start your own company, that if it doesn't get you excited about what you're going to accomplish or what you're bringing to the table for the community, then you're in for the wrong reasons. the very fact that you just explained this story about Devin saying, no, I'm going to test this out while I'm in the waiting phase, and then not understanding the longevity of the practice that he put in for the actual competition, which is starting your business at the farmer's market. That I really believe is a great significance and a great illustration of put the time and the effort in something that you really love and that you want to pursue as a dream. And then when you do that, you're going to really find joy, even though you may take a pay cut or it may not give you what you need in the season that you're wanting. Down the road, it's going to return the dividends in the sense of now look at where you guys are. You would have never dreamed or known that you would have had your own space, this ability to have an incredible team, an incredible community to come to collaborate with and to really influence is what I really see. It's just something pretty incredible that you guys are a part of and what you guys are doing. There's really a lot of fun things that we're excited to have you guys around here for.
Reese Flood said, do you have a rollout plan in place for when COVID is over?
The pipeline we hope to do, well, right now what we've been doing is we're actually in the midst of our rollout plan still, obviously, but what we had originally done was, we started to operate only in our tea truck, and in fact, we were having our team members wear masks since early March, because even pre-shelter in place, pre any kind of orders in the city, and that part of that is actually because of my family being in Taiwan, right, and in China. So my family, Devin's family, had actually witnessed and experienced COVID themselves since December of 2019. And so pretty early on, our moms were calling us every day, like, you guys need to wear masks. Make sure your team members wear masks. They were sending us masks, and we were like, Mom, nobody here is wearing masks. Like, there's no way it's going to become socially acceptable or whatever. And then, but they were just like, no, you guys need to protect yourself and whatnot. And so that was, kind of the beginning phases of our rollout plan with all the mask ordinances and only doing to-go orders. And then now where we're at is we actually just reopened this Monday. So this past Monday is when we reopened our dine-in portion, like where people can actually sit and enjoy their tea. We actually were only doing to-go from March all the way till now. So we haven't even opened up the space really to provide, to have people sit in to enjoy their tea up until now. And so our continued rollout plans, obviously future plans is to eventually open back catering. Right now, we are no longer doing events in the sense of like our dumpling night events, but we do have at-home dumpling kit that folks can make, and there's a video that goes, it's a tutorial on how to make your dumplings at home and enjoy that at home. But eventually, as COVID ends, we'd hope to be able to start those dumpling night workshops again, our community events and gatherings. I mean, really, probably what would be the first spark is actually to have our grand opening, right? Because we haven't even had our ribbon cutting or our grand opening just yet. Because we usually like to have a lot of people and, try to gather everybody. And so that's just something that we haven't been able to do yet. We're, of course, thinking about expansion. I mean, we hope to continue growing beyond Waco area. And so that's something that we're just kind of brainstorming ideas now about of what would that look like, or even what would be opportunities for expansion beyond Waco.
Richard Dunn says he really enjoys the food. Thanks for bringing your culture foods to Central Texas.
Yeah, it's such a joy. And it's funny because, my food the food we would serve is food that when we were little, part of my childhood was in Oklahoma. When we were little, folks would actually be like, ew, what is that? What's in your lunchbox? But then now, as an adult, it's like everybody, I remember I'd bring my food to work and folks would be like, oh my gosh, that smells so good. Like, what are you eating? And now it's something that is celebrated. So it's really funny how it comes around full circle in that way.
Yeah. Well, Jaja, I'd love to wrap us up here with the final question. What, as a community, can we do to help serve you?
Yeah, so kind of going along the lines of what I was talking about with like expansion brainstorming, we would love to hear ideas or even just to hear more input about, ideas on places where we can continue to expand through our mobile tea truck, right? So our mobile tea truck gives us the opportunity to park in front of businesses or locations, or even to go out to different community events and whatnot. Like literally our mobile tea truck is at the Baylor, in front of Baylor Student Center right now operating. And so we're hoping to use that as a way to kind of continue to test different markets to see, is there actually a possibility to expand in the future in other locations, right? So for example, a few months ago, we were at Temple High School. Our mobile tea truck was parked in front of Temple High School. And that's actually when we started to look into options in Temple. We hadn't really even thought about that before, but it's not too far from Waco. And so I guess my ask is if anybody knows of different businesses or locations in the Temple Belton area, or even outside of Waco area that you think it would be a good place for us to park and to just continue testing the market, let us know. We would love to get those contacts and to continue to see if that's an option, when it comes to expansion.
Well, there you go. Well, you definitely got the community's heard that, and you guys share the word. If you know anybody, connect with Jaja. Jaja, if you wouldn't mind posting just some contact information, just whether it's your website or an email address in the chat on Zoom, so that the people on here can have that, and then also maybe comment on the live video on Facebook, just as a comment whenever it's done. That way people can contact you, give you some recommendations or some headway there. That'd be great. Thank you so much, Jaja. A round of applause. Great presentation, great Q&A. Really appreciate you guys and everything you and Devin are doing in the community. And just so everybody knows, this isn't their first time here at 1 Million Cups Waco. We love them and just the progress. This is the heart of what we want to do, is have people who have presented come back, give us an update, how things are going. And this is just a great illustration of a local entrepreneur continually taking the challenges that you face along the journey and really showing you the growth and the struggle on both sides. And that's what we value here at 1MC Waco. So you guys have a great week, and thanks for joining us this morning for 1MC Waco. We look forward to seeing you next week, and have a great day.
Bye.